When Lena Cross walked into that pristine clinic carrying another man's secret, she thought she'd buried her past 6 months deep. The divorce papers were signed, the escape was clean. She'd disappeared into anonymity, believing Dante Russo had moved on without looking back. But fate doesn't honor signed documents or careful plans. The moment his shadow fell across the waiting room floor, everything she'd built to protect herself, and the child growing inside her, shattered like glass under his unrelenting gaze. Some men let go. Dante Russo wasn't one of them. And now he knew exactly what she'd been hiding. Before we begin, if you love dramatic stories of second chances and dangerous love, hit that like button and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels around the world. The Madison Avenue Wellness Clinic didn't look like the kind of place where lives fell apart. Everything about it whispered money and discretion, from the marble floors that gleamed under recessed lighting to the receptionist who smiled without showing teeth. It was the sort of establishment where celebrities came for their secrets, where politicians' wives received treatments no insurance company would ever see itemized. Lena Cross didn't belong there. At least that's what she told herself as she signed in under her maiden name, her hand instinctively moving to cradle the pronounced swell of her belly. 8 months pregnant, and she still wasn't used to the weight, the constant presence of another life pressing against her ribs, reminding her with every breath that nothing would ever be simple again. "Mrs. Cross," the nurse's voice was professionally neutral. "We're ready for you." Not Mrs. Russo. Never that again. Lena followed the woman down a corridor lined with abstract art that probably cost more than her entire year's rent. She'd chosen this clinic specifically because it was far from her old neighborhood, far from the world she'd fled 6 months ago when she'd signed divorce papers with shaking hands and walked away from the only man who'd ever made her feel both utterly safe and completely terrified. Dante Russo. Even thinking his name made her chest tighten. She forced the thought away, focusing instead on the appointment ahead. Just a routine checkup. The baby was healthy. Everything was progressing normally. In 4 weeks, maybe less, she'd hold her daughter in her arms, and this strange liminal space she'd been living in, pregnant, alone, hiding, would finally resolve into something concrete. She could do this. She was doing this. The examination room was smaller than she expected, painted in soft blues that were probably meant to be calming. Lena settled onto the table, the paper crinkling beneath her, and tried to steady her breathing. The nurse took her vitals with efficient hands, asking questions Lena had answered a dozen times before. Any cramping? No. Bleeding? No. Unusual pain? Only the usual kind. "Dr. Morrison will be right in," the nurse said, closing the door behind her with a soft click. Lena closed her eyes, letting her head fall back against the wall. Exhaustion lived in her bones these days, a deep weariness that had nothing to do with the pregnancy and everything to do with the constant vigilance required to stay invisible. She'd left Manhattan for Brooklyn, found a small apartment in a neighborhood where nobody asked questions. She worked remotely for a marketing firm that didn't care where she lived as long as she met her deadlines. She'd built a quiet life, a safe life. A life Dante knew nothing about. The divorce had been clean as any dissolution of a 3-year marriage could be. His lawyers had been professional, almost cold in their efficiency. She'd expected a fight, expected him to use his considerable power to make things difficult. Instead, he'd let her go with a settlement generous enough to make her uncomfortable and a single message delivered through his attorney. "If this is what you want, I won't stand in your way." She'd told herself it was proof he'd never really cared, that their marriage had been exactly what it looked like from the outside, a transaction. He was Dante Russo, the man who owned half the commercial real estate in Manhattan, whose family name carried weight in circles Lena had never imagined existed before she met him. She was nobody. A waitress he'd noticed at one of his properties, whose smile had apparently been interesting enough to warrant a second glance. Their courtship had been a whirlwind. 3 months from first meeting to wedding. She'd been 24 and stupid enough to believe that intensity meant love. It had taken her 2.5 years to understand the difference. The door opened, pulling Lena from her thoughts. But it wasn't Dr. Morrison who stepped inside. It was a woman in her 50s, elegant in the way that came from generations of good breeding and better skin care. "Ms. Cross, I'm Dr. Chen. I'm afraid Dr. Morrison was called away for an emergency. I'll be handling your appointment today." Lena nodded, trying to ignore the flutter of anxiety in her chest. Change of plans. It was fine. Everything was fine. The checkup proceeded normally. Dr. Chen was thorough, professional, her hands gentle as she examined Lena's belly, measuring, pressing, listening to the baby's heartbeat through the Doppler. That sound, strong and steady, never failed to make Lena's throat tight with emotion. Everything looks excellent, Dr. Chen said, making notes on her tablet. Baby's position is good. Heart rate is strong. You're measuring right on track for 32 weeks. That's good, Lena managed. That's really good, Dr. Chen smiled. You're doing wonderfully. Any questions for me? 1,000 questions, none she could ask. What do I do when she asks about her father? How do I explain why we're alone? What if I'm not enough? No, Lena said instead. I think I'm okay. Well, if anything comes up, don't hesitate to call. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Lena nodded, accepting the appointment card the nurse handed her on the way out. 2 more weeks, then 2 weeks after that, and then her daughter would be here, and Lena would have to figure out how to be everything a child needed when she'd spent the last 6 months barely holding herself together. She made her way back to the waiting room, moving slowly. Her back ached, a dull, persistent pain that the pregnancy books promised would only get worse. She was focused on the exit, on getting outside where she could breathe when she felt it. That familiar prickle at the base of her neck, the sensation of being watched. Lena looked up, and her entire world stopped. He stood near the reception desk, tall and devastating in a charcoal suit that probably cost what she made in 3 months. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged in Renaissance paintings, all sharp angles and aristocratic features softened only slightly by a mouth that knew how to destroy with a kiss. Eyes the color of smoke and steel fixed on her with an intensity that made her knees weak. Dante Russo, her ex-husband, staring directly at her very pregnant belly. Time seemed to fracture. Lena watched his expression shift from surprise to confusion to a dawning realization that made his entire body go rigid. His gaze moved from her stomach to her face, and in his eyes she saw the calculation happening, the timeline being assembled. They'd been divorced for 6 months. She was 8 months pregnant. The math was simple, devastating, irrefutable. Lena. Her name came out rough, scraped raw. He moved toward her and she took an instinctive step back, her hand flying to her belly in a protective gesture she couldn't suppress. His eyes tracked the movement. Something dangerous flickered across his face. Don't, she whispered. Dante, don't. But he was already crossing the distance between them, his long strides eating up the tastefully decorated space. People were beginning to notice, the receptionist's eyes going wide, a woman in yoga pants pausing mid-scroll on her phone. Lena felt the attention like a physical weight. Is there somewhere private we can talk? Dante's voice was controlled, but she could hear the razor edge beneath the calm. Now. I don't have anything to say to you. That's interesting. His eyes dropped to her belly again, and she watched his jaw clench. Because it seems like there's quite a lot you haven't said. The receptionist appeared at Lena's elbow, her professional smile firmly in place despite the obvious tension. Is everything all right, Ms. Cross? Yes, Lena said. At the same time, Dante said, no. They stared at each other. Lena's heart was hammering so hard she was certain he could hear it. 6 months. She'd had 6 months of peace, of building a life separate from his world, and now he stood in front of her, looking at her like she'd committed treason. Mr. Russo, the receptionist tried again, recognizing him now. Of course she did. Everyone knew Dante Russo. Perhaps we could... Give us the room. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't need to. Command lived in every syllable. Whatever consult room is available, now. The woman hesitated, glancing at Lena. To her credit, she didn't immediately fold. Ms. Cross, are you comfortable? It's fine, Lena heard herself say, even though nothing about this was fine, even though every instinct screamed at her to run. But where would she go? Dante knew where she was now. He'd seen her, seen the baby. Running wouldn't change what he'd already figured out. The receptionist led them to a small consultation room, the kind used for delivering bad news. Lena sank into one of the chairs, exhaustion and adrenaline making her dizzy. Dante remained standing, his back to the closed door, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. The silence stretched between them, thick with everything they weren't saying. Finally, Dante spoke. When were you planning to tell me? I wasn't. The words hung in the air like a confession. His eyes went dark, something violent and hurt flashing across his features before he locked it down behind that impenetrable control he wielded like armor. I see. 2 words, carefully empty. And you didn't think I had a right to know I was going to be a father? You gave up your rights when you let me walk away. Lena's hands trembled in her lap. She pressed them flat against her thighs, refusing to let him see how much this was costing her. You signed the papers, Dante. You didn't fight. You didn't even ask me to stay. Because you made it clear that's what you wanted. The control cracked, his voice rising. He caught himself, forcing his tone down to something more level. You looked me in the eye and told me you couldn't do it anymore. That you needed to leave. Was I supposed to trap you? Force you to stay in a marriage you clearly wanted out of? You were supposed to care enough to ask why. The words came out before she could stop them, raw and honest and so painfully vulnerable that she wanted to take them back the moment they hit air. But it was too late. Dante stared at her like she'd struck him. I did care, he said quietly. That's why I let you go. Lena closed her eyes, pressing her fingers to the bridge of her nose. This was pointless. They'd had versions of this argument before, in the dying days of their marriage, when she'd tried to explain why living in his world was slowly suffocating her. The parties full of people who looked through her like she didn't exist. The constant undercurrent of danger she'd been too naive to understand when she married him. The growing certainty that she was nothing more than an attractive accessory to a man who measured everything in terms of power and control. She'd loved him. God, she'd loved him so much it hurt. But love hadn't been enough to bridge the gap between his world and hers. How far along are you? Dante asked, his tactical mind already assembling facts. 32 weeks. She watched him count backward, saw the moment he placed it. Late January. Their last night together, 2 weeks before she'd asked for the divorce. They'd fought about something, she couldn't even remember what now, and the make-up sex had been desperate, angry, the kind that left marks and made promises neither of them could keep. Jesus, Lena. He dragged a hand through his hair, the carefully maintained composure fracturing. You've been carrying my child for 8 months, and you didn't think to tell me? Not once? You made it clear you wanted a clean break. A clean break from our marriage, not from my child. His voice rose again, and he forced it down with visible effort. Did you really think I wouldn't want to know? That I wouldn't want to be involved? I thought... She trailed off, uncertain how to put it into words. Your lawyers were so efficient, Dante. Professional, cold. They made it clear that you wanted to move on, that I was being taken care of financially, and that was the end of it. There was no room for complications. And a baby is a complication. It wasn't a question. The flatness in his voice made her chest ache. In your world? Yes. Lena met his eyes, refusing to look away even though it hurt. Your life is meetings and deals and carefully orchestrated appearances. I know what children mean in families like yours, heirs and legacy and expectations I could never meet. I didn't want that for her. Her? Something shifted in his expression, a softness that was almost painful to witness. It's a girl? Lena's hand moved to her belly again, protective and instinctive. Yes. Dante was quiet for a long moment, processing. When he spoke again, his voice was different, lower, more careful. What are you planning to name her? I don't know yet. A lie. She knew. She'd chosen the name months ago, written it in the baby journal her neighbor had given her, whispered it late at night when the loneliness felt like it might swallow her whole. But that felt too intimate to share, like offering up a piece of herself she needed to keep protected. Dante moved closer, pulling out the chair across from her and sitting down. It put them at eye level, close enough that she could see the exhaustion etched around his eyes, the tension in his jaw. He looked like he hadn't been sleeping well. The thought that he might have struggled even a fraction as much as she had these past months felt both satisfying and terrible. I need you to understand something, he said carefully. I didn't want the divorce. I went along with it because you seemed so certain it was what you needed, and I'd spent our entire marriage trying to give you what you needed while failing spectacularly at actually understanding what that was. So when you asked to leave, I thought maybe letting you go was the last decent thing I could do for you. Lena's throat tightened. Dante. But this? He gestured at her belly, his hand shaking slightly before he fisted it on his thigh. This changes everything. You're carrying my daughter, Lena, my child, and I will not be shut out of her life because you've decided I'm not good enough or safe enough or whatever story you've been telling yourself to justify keeping her from me. It's not about you being good enough. The words came out thick with emotion she couldn't quite suppress. It's about keeping her safe. Safe from what? From me? His eyes went hard, dangerous. I would never hurt my own child. Not physically, but your world, Dante, the things you're involved in, the people you deal with. You think I don't know how to protect what's mine? He leaned forward, and despite herself, despite every rational reason to maintain distance, Lena felt the old pull toward him. That magnetic gravity he'd always had. The force that had drawn her in 3 years ago and never quite let go. I've built an empire on making sure my people are safe, on eliminating threats before they become problems. Did you really think I'd be less vigilant with my own daughter? That's exactly what I'm afraid of, Lena whispered. That she'll grow up in a world where threats need to be eliminated, where violence is just another business transaction. I don't want that for her. Dante sat back, studying her face with an intensity that made her want to look away. So your plan was what? Raise her alone? Let her grow up, never knowing her father? I plan to give her a normal life, stable, safe. And when she asks about me? When she wants to know why she doesn't have a father? Lena's hands tightened on her belly. She'd thought about that. Of course she'd thought about that. Late at night when sleep wouldn't come, and the baby kicked against her ribs like she was already demanding answers. I would have told her the truth, she said finally, that her father was a good man who lived in a complicated world. That I chose to leave not because he didn't care, but because I needed something different. A good man. Dante's laugh was bitter. Is that what you think I am? Sometimes. She met his eyes. When you let yourself be. The admission hung between them, honest and painful. Dante looked away first, his jaw working as he processed. When he looked back, his eyes had gone cold again, that ruthless focus she recognized from boardrooms and business deals. Here's what's going to happen, he said, and she heard the steel beneath the words. You're going to give me your address, your phone number, your doctor's information, everything, and then we're going to figure out a plan for how this is going to work. You can't just... I can. He leaned forward again, close enough that she could smell his cologne, that familiar scent that used to cling to her skin after he held her. You've had 8 months to make decisions about our daughter without my input. That ends today. I'm her father, Lena, whether you like it or not, whether it fits your plans or not, and I will not be shut out. And if I refuse? His eyes glittered dangerously. Then I'll have my lawyers file for custody before the end of the week. Is that really what you want? A legal battle? Because I promise you, I have resources you can't match, and a very compelling case about a mother who deliberately concealed a pregnancy from the father. Lena felt ice slide down her spine. You wouldn't. Try me. They stared at each other, the threat hanging in the air between them. Lena searched his face for some sign of the man she'd married, the one who'd been gentle with her, who'd listened when she talked about her dreams, even if he didn't fully understand them. But all she saw was Dante Russo, the businessman, the strategist who didn't lose. I left because I was drowning, she said quietly. Every day in your world felt like I was losing pieces of myself. The person I was before I met you, she just disappeared. And I didn't know how to explain that to you because you were always so certain, so controlled. You had your life figured out, and I was just trying to survive in it. Something flickered across his expression. You never said that. I tried. You didn't hear me. Then make me hear you now. He reached across the space between them, his hand hovering near hers but not quite touching. Tell me what you need, what she needs, and we'll figure it out. Lena looked at his hand, so close she could feel the heat of it. How many times had those hands held her, protected her, made her feel like she was the only thing in the world that mattered? And how many times had she felt like an obligation, a responsibility he'd taken on and couldn't quite figure out what to do with? I need you to let me do this my way, she said. Not swoop in and take over, not make decisions without me, not treat our daughter like she's another asset to manage. I would never. You already are. She gestured at the space between them. You're already making demands, already threatening lawyers. That's who you are, Dante. When you want something, you acquire it. You control it. You make it fit your vision of how things should be. But a child isn't a business deal, and I won't let you turn her into one. Dante pulled back, his expression shuddering. For a moment, she thought he might actually walk away, leave her to figure this out alone just like she'd planned. Instead, he stood, buttoning his suit jacket with deliberate precision. I'll give you 24 hours to decide how you want to handle this. You can either contact me and we can work something out like adults, or I'll have my lawyers draw up custody papers. Your choice. He pulled a card from his pocket and placed it on the table between them. His private number, the one only a handful of people had access to. Think about what's best for our daughter, Lena. Not what's easiest for you. Not what fits your narrative about who I am or what my world means. Think about what she deserves. He moved toward the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. For what it's worth, I'm sorry I failed you. I'm sorry I didn't hear what you were trying to tell me. I'm sorry I let you walk away when maybe I should have fought harder. But I'm not sorry we're having this child together, and I won't apologize for wanting to be part of her life. Then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him. Lena sat in the empty consultation room, her heart hammering, her hands shaking. The baby kicked, hard enough to make her wince, as if she knew something had fundamentally shifted in the careful world Lena had built. 24 hours. He'd given her 24 hours to upend everything. She looked down at her belly, at the visible outline of a tiny foot pressing against her skin. What do I do? She whispered to the daughter she hadn't met yet. How do I protect you from him when part of me still... But she couldn't finish that sentence, couldn't acknowledge what still lived in her chest despite everything, despite the months apart, despite all the very good reasons she'd left. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I meant what I said. 24 hours. Don't make me be the bad guy in this, Lena. We both know I can be when I need to be. She stared at the words, at the implicit threat wrapped in reasonable language. Classic Dante. Give her a choice while making it clear there was really only one acceptable answer. The baby kicked again, more insistent this time. I know, Lena murmured, her hand moving in soothing circles over her belly. I know, sweet girl. Everything just got very complicated. She stood slowly, gathering her things, trying to think through her options. She could call her lawyer, see if there was any way to fight this. But Dante was right. He had resources she couldn't match. More than that, he had a legitimate claim. She'd kept his child from him. No court would look kindly on that. She could run again, disappear more thoroughly this time. But that felt impossible now, exhausting in a way she couldn't afford. She was weeks away from giving birth. She needed stability, support, medical care. Running would put both her and the baby at risk. Or she could do what he asked. Contact him. Try to work something out. Try to build some kind of co-parenting relationship with her ex-husband, despite the fact that seeing him for 10 minutes had left her emotionally shredded. Lena made her way out of the clinic, squinting against the late afternoon sun. The city hummed around her, traffic and voices and the constant pulse of millions of lives intersecting and diverging. 6 months ago, she'd thought she could just slip into that current and disappear. Build a new life where her history didn't matter. But history, she was learning, had a way of tracking you down. She was halfway to the subway when she felt it again, that prickle of awareness. She turned, scanning the street, and saw him immediately. Dante stood beside a black town car, his driver holding the door open. He was watching her with an expression that made her breath catch, something raw and almost vulnerable beneath the usual control. Their eyes met across the distance. He didn't move, didn't approach, just watched her, waiting. Lena tightened her grip on her bag and turned toward the subway entrance. She heard the car door close, heard the engine start. When she glanced back, he was gone. But his card was still in her pocket, and she had 24 hours to decide what came next. Lena didn't sleep that night. She lay in her small Brooklyn apartment watching shadows move across the ceiling while her daughter performed gymnastics against her ribs. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dante's face in that consultation room. The shock, the anger, the hurt he'd tried so hard to hide behind that impenetrable control. 24 hours. The deadline ticked away like a bomb in her chest. By morning, she'd made her decision. Not because she wanted to, but because she was out of options. She picked up her phone 3 times before finally typing out a message to the number he'd texted from. "We need to talk. But not at your office. Somewhere neutral." His response came within 30 seconds. Prospect Park. The boathouse. 1 hour. Of course he'd choose somewhere public, somewhere she couldn't make a scene, couldn't walk away easily. Dante thought of everything. Lena dressed carefully, choosing clothes that made her feel armored despite her unwieldy body. A black dress that accommodated her belly, her good coat, boots that were practical but polished. If she was going to negotiate the terms of her surrender, she'd do it looking like she had some control left. The park was beautiful in early autumn, trees just beginning to turn gold and crimson. Lena walked slowly, her hand pressed to her lower back where the ache had become constant. She spotted Dante before he saw her, standing near the water's edge in jeans and a dark sweater that made him look younger, less like the corporate titan and more like the man she'd fallen for 3 years ago. He turned as she approached, and something in his expression made her steps falter. He looked exhausted, shadows under his eyes that matched her own. "You came," he said, and she heard the relief beneath the words. "You didn't give me much choice." "I gave you exactly one choice. You could have ignored me." He gestured to a nearby bench. "Please, sit. You look tired." "I am tired." But she sat anyway, grateful to get off her feet. "I've been tired for 8 months." Dante settled beside her, careful to leave space between them. They sat in silence for a moment, watching ducks paddle across the pond. It felt surreal, this quiet domestic scene, when everything between them was fractured and sharp. "I need to apologize," Dante said finally, "for yesterday, for threatening you with lawyers. That was—" He paused, searching for words. "That wasn't my finest moment." Lena looked at him, surprised. Dante didn't apologize often. When he did, it meant something. "You were angry," she said quietly. "I don't blame you for that." "I was furious." He turned to face her, and the raw honesty in his eyes made her chest tight. "But not just at you, at myself, for letting things get so bad between us that you felt like keeping our child from me was the safer option. That says more about my failures than yours." "Dante, let me finish." His hand moved like he wanted to reach for hers, then fell back to his lap. "I've spent the last 6 months trying to figure out where I went wrong with you. What I did that made you leave. My therapist, yes, I have a therapist now, keeps telling me I can't control everything, that some things aren't about winning or losing, they're about understanding and compromise. I'm not good at those things. Never have been." "You're seeing a therapist?" Lena couldn't keep the shock from her voice. "You left me, Lena. That tends to make a man examine his life choices." A ghost of a smile touched his lips, bitter and self-aware. "Turns out, I have a lot of work to do. Control issues, difficulty with emotional vulnerability, a tendency to treat relationships like business transactions. The hits just keep coming." Despite everything, Lena felt a smile tug at her own mouth. "Welcome to self-awareness. It's terrible. It really is." He was quiet for a moment, watching the water. "I want to be part of her life. Our daughters. Not because I'm trying to control you or because I see her as an asset to manage, but because the thought of her existing in the world without me knowing her, without me being there for her, it's unbearable." The sincerity in his voice cracked something in Lena's chest. "I'm scared," she admitted, "of your world, of what it means to let you back in, not just for me, but for her." "What specifically scares you?" It was such a Dante question, tactical, precise, breaking problems down into manageable components. But for once, Lena appreciated it. The concrete specificity gave her something to hold on to. "The danger," she said. "The party's full of people who smile while they're calculating how to use you. The feeling that nothing is ever just simple. That every interaction has layers and angles and implications I don't understand." Dante nodded slowly. "Okay, that's fair. What else?" "That you'll try to shape her into something she's not. That she'll grow up thinking love is transactional, that protection comes with strings attached, that she'll never feel like she's enough just as she is." "Is that how I made you feel?" The question came out quiet, pained. Like you weren't enough? Lena looked down at her hands, at the absent place where her wedding ring used to sit. You made me feel cherished and suffocated at the same time. Like I was this precious thing you needed to keep safe, but also separate, apart from the real substance of your life. You'd come home and ask about my day, but when I tried to ask about yours, you'd deflect. Tell me not to worry about business, as if your entire world was something I needed to be protected from. I was trying to keep you safe. I know, but it also kept me out. She met his eyes. Marriage is supposed to be a partnership, Dante, but I felt like a dependent, someone you took care of but didn't actually include. He was quiet for a long time, processing. A jogger passed by, earbuds in, oblivious to the life-altering conversation happening on this ordinary bench. Lena watched a mother and daughter feed ducks at the pond's edge, the little girl squealing with delight, and felt her throat tighten with emotion. That would be her soon. A mother with a daughter, trying to navigate this impossible situation. I don't know how to fix what I broke, Dante said finally. But I want to try. Not to get you back. I understand that's not what this is about, but to be better. For her. And maybe to prove to you that I can be the kind of father she deserves. What does that look like to you? Lena asked. Being the father she deserves. Honestly, I have no idea. He laughed, the sound rough and uncertain. I didn't have the best example. My father was, well, you know what he was. Distant, demanding, more concerned with legacy than with actually knowing his children. I don't want to be that. Then don't be. It's not that simple, isn't it? Lena shifted on the bench, trying to ease the pressure on her back. You're one of the most disciplined people I know. You decide what you want and you make it happen. So decide that you're going to be different, be present, be available. Actually listen when she talks to you instead of already planning your response. Dante's jaw tightened. Is that what I did with you? Sometimes. She softened her tone. Not always. There were moments when you were completely there, when I felt like I was the only person in your universe. But they got rarer as time went on. Like you were always thinking 3 steps ahead, always managing the next crisis, and I was just waiting for you to come back to me. Jesus, Lena. He dragged a hand through his hair, that rare gesture of frustration. Why didn't you tell me this before? Why let it build until you had to leave? I tried. You didn't hear me. Then I'm listening now, really listening. Tell me what you need, what our daughter needs, and I'll do everything in my power to make it happen. Lena took a deep breath, steadying herself. This was it. The moment she set boundaries or lost the chance to have any say in what came next. I need you to respect that I'm her mother, that I know her, or I will know her, in ways you won't automatically have access to. I need you to work with me, not around me. No making decisions without consulting me first. No using your resources to override my choices. We do this together, or we don't do it at all. Agreed. The answer came so quickly it startled her. Just like that? Just like that. Dante turned to face her fully. Lena, I'm not interested in fighting you for control. I'm interested in being part of my daughter's life. If that means compromising, deferring to you on things, actually collaborating instead of dictating, I'll do it. I'll learn how. Learning takes time, mistakes. I need to know you won't give up when it gets hard. I won't. The certainty in his voice made her want to believe him. I let you go once because I thought that's what you needed. I'm not making that mistake again, not with her. Whatever it takes, however long it takes, I'm in this. Lena felt tears prick her eyes, hormones and exhaustion, and something dangerously close to hope, all tangling together. I don't want to fight with you, Dante. I don't want lawyers and custody battles and our daughter growing up watching us tear each other apart. But I also can't go back to how things were. I'm not asking you to. He hesitated, then reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand covered hers, warm and solid. I'm asking for a chance to do better, to be better. Will you give me that? His thumb brushed across her knuckles, the gesture so familiar it hurt. How many times had he held her hand like this? During their first date, when she'd been nervous and rambling. At their wedding, when she'd been shaking with joy and terror. in the hospital after her mother died, when grief had made her feel like she might shatter. He'd always known how to ground her with a touch. "Okay," she whispered. "We can try. But Dante, if you revert to who you were, if you start trying to control everything, if you shut me out, if you make me feel small again, I will take our daughter and you will never find us. Do you understand?" Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger, but something deeper. Respect, maybe? Or fear of loss. "I understand, and I promise you I won't give you reason to run." He squeezed her hand gently. "Now tell me about the pregnancy. I want to know everything. What you've been experiencing, what the doctors have said, if there have been any complications." "You want my medical history?" She couldn't quite keep the skepticism from her voice. "I want to know about our daughter and about you, if you're comfortable sharing." Lena studied his face, looking for the catch, the angle, but all she saw was genuine interest mixed with barely concealed anxiety. He really did care. In his own intense, overwhelming way, he'd always cared. "Everything's been normal," she said slowly. "Textbook pregnancy according to Dr. Morrison. Some morning sickness in the first trimester, but it passed. She's active. You should feel her kick. It's like she's training for soccer in there. The anatomy scan showed everything developing perfectly. Heart, brain, all her organs. And she's positioned well for delivery. When are you due?" 4 weeks? October 15th. "And you have a birth plan? A hospital you've chosen?" "Brooklyn Methodist. It's close to my apartment, has good reviews. I've taken the tour, met with the birthing center staff. I'm planning for an unmedicated birth if possible, but I'm open to interventions if necessary." Dante nodded, clearly filing away every detail. "And you have someone to be there with you? A coach, family member, friend?" Lena's throat tightened. "I have my neighbor. She's a doula. She offered to be there, to help me through it." "A neighbor." His voice was carefully neutral, but she heard the hurt beneath it. "Not the baby's father. You gave up your right to that role when you signed the divorce papers." "No." The word came out firm, definitive. "I gave up my right to be your husband. I never gave up being her father. I just didn't know I was one. That changes now. I want to be there, Lena. When she's born, I want to be the first person she sees besides you." "Dante, please." He turned her hand over, his thumb pressing against her palm. "I've already missed 8 months. Her first movements, hearing her heartbeat for the first time, seeing her on the ultrasound. I know that's my fault for not fighting harder for our marriage, but don't take this from me too. Let me be there when she comes into the world." Lena felt her resistance crumbling. She'd imagined her neighbor Martha in the delivery room, holding her hand, coaching her through contractions. It would be enough. It would be fine. But having Dante there, the father of her child, the man she'd loved despite everything, that would mean something different, something she wasn't sure she was ready for. "I need to think about it," she said finally. "That's fair." He withdrew his hand, leaving her palm cold. "Think about it, and whatever you decide, I'll respect it. But Lena, I'm asking, really asking, let me be part of this." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, frowning at the unknown number. Then her blood went cold as she read the message. "Congratulations on the baby, Lena. Funny how life changes. Dante's, I assume, does he know?" Her hands started shaking. Dante noticed immediately. "What is it? What's wrong?" She handed him the phone wordlessly, watched his expression go from concern to deadly in the space of a heartbeat. "Who is this?" he asked, his voice dropping to that dangerous quiet she recognized from exactly twice in their marriage, both times when someone had threatened something he considered his. "I don't know. I've never seen that number before." Dante was already typing on his own phone, his fingers flying. "How long have you been getting messages like this?" "I haven't. That's the first one." He looked up sharply. "You're sure?" "Yes." "Dante, what's going on? Who would send something like that?" "I don't know yet." He made a call, his tone clipped and professional when someone answered. "Marcus, I need a trace on a number. Priority 1. I'm sending it to you now." He paused, listening. "I don't care what you're in the middle of. Drop it. This is about Lena." He hung up and immediately started another call. Lena watched, her heart hammering, as he rattled off instructions to someone else, something about security protocols and monitoring her apartment building. "Dante, you're scaring me." He finished the call and turned to her, his expression carefully controlled but his eyes blazing. "How well do you know your neighbors, the people in your building?" "Well enough." "Why?" "Because someone knows you're pregnant with my child. Someone knows enough to contact you directly, and that kind of information doesn't circulate unless someone's paying attention." "You think someone's watching me?" The words came out thin, frightened. "I think someone's interested enough to reach out." He stood, his entire body coiled with tension. "Which means we need to take precautions. Starting now." "What kind of precautions?" "The kind where you're not alone in an apartment I know nothing about, in a neighborhood I can't secure, carrying my child while someone out there is clearly monitoring your movements." Lena struggled to her feet, anger cutting through the fear. "You're not doing this. You're not using some random text message as an excuse to swoop in and take over my life. That text message proves someone knows about you, about the baby. In my world, that makes you a target." "Your world? That's exactly what I was trying to avoid." Her voice rose, drawing looks from other park visitors. She lowered it to a harsh whisper. "This is why I left, Dante, because everything becomes a threat. Everything needs security protocols and monitoring. I won't live like that. I won't raise our daughter in a fortress." "Even if it keeps her safe?" "Safe from what? One weird text? People get spam all the time. That wasn't spam." His jaw was tight, his eyes hard. "That was targeted. Someone who knows your name, knows about the pregnancy, knows about me. Someone who took the time to track down your personal number and send a message designed to do exactly what it's doing, make you scared and vulnerable. Or maybe it's someone from your past trying to stir up trouble. Did you think about that? Maybe this has nothing to do with me and everything to do with whoever you pissed off in your last business deal." The words hung between them, sharp and accusing. Dante's expression shuddered. "You're right," he said quietly. "This probably does come back to me. Which is exactly why you need protection. My enemies won't care that we're divorced. They'll see you as leverage. And now that you're carrying my child, don't." Lena pressed her hands to her belly, protective and instinctive. "Don't make this about business rivals and leverage. She's a baby, Dante. A person, not a pawn in whatever game you're playing." "I know that." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "God, Lena, I know that. But the people who would use her to get to me don't care. They don't operate with the same rules, and I will not take chances with your safety, with her safety." "So what are you suggesting? That I move into your penthouse? Let you put security details on me? Live behind bulletproof glass and bodyguards?" "If that's what it takes." "No." The word came out flat, definitive. "I won't do it." "Lena, I said no." She was breathing hard now, adrenaline and fear making her dizzy. "I left that life for a reason. I'm not going back. One text message doesn't change that." Dante looked at her for a long moment, and she saw him struggling, between his instinct to protect and his promise to respect her boundaries. Finally, he pulled out his phone. "Then we compromise. You stay in your apartment for now. But I'm putting security on your building, discreet. You won't even know they're there. And if you get another message, anything that feels off, you call me immediately. No arguing, no trying to handle it yourself. You call me." "Dante, that's the deal, Lena. Either you let me take basic precautions, or I go to a judge right now and argue that you're exposing my unborn child to unnecessary risk by refusing reasonable security measures. How do you think that conversation will go?" It was a low blow, and they both knew it. Lena felt tears of frustration burn behind her eyes. "You promised you wouldn't do this. You promised you wouldn't try to control everything." "I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to keep you alive." His voice broke slightly on the last word, raw emotion bleeding through the control. Please let me do this. Let me make sure you're safe. I can't." He stopped, swallowing hard. "I can't lose you both. I won't survive it." The vulnerability in that admission cracked her anger. She saw the fear beneath his commands, the terror that something might happen to her and their daughter while he stood by, helpless. It didn't make his methods right, but she understood the impulse behind them. Okay, she said finally. Security on the building, but they stay outside. They don't interfere with my life. They don't report my movements to you. They just watch. That's it. Thank you. The relief in his voice was palpable. And you'll call me if anything else happens? I'll call you. And we can discuss living arrangements later, when you've had time to think about it? Dante, just think about it, please. He reached out, his hand hovering near her face like he wanted to touch her but didn't quite dare. I know I'm asking for a lot. I know I'm pushing. But Lena, the thought of you being vulnerable, of something happening to you or our daughter because I wasn't there to protect you, it's unbearable. Lena closed her eyes, exhausted beyond measure. I need to go home. I need to process all of this. Let me drive you. I can take the subway, please. Just that one word, stripped of command, pure request. Let me do this one thing. Let me make sure you get home safely. She was too tired to argue, too overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the last 24 hours to mount another defense. Fine, but you're not coming up to my apartment. I wouldn't dream of it. He offered his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. They walked back to his car in silence, Lena painfully aware of his hand at the small of her back, guiding her carefully over uneven pavement. The driver opened the door without comment, and Lena sank gratefully into the leather seats. The ride to Brooklyn felt surreal. Dante sat beside her, close but not touching, his presence filling the space. Lena watched the city slide past the windows, the familiar streets of her new life that suddenly felt less safe than they had this morning. I'm sorry, Dante said quietly as they crossed the bridge, for springing all of this on you. For the security, the demands, all of it. I know it's the opposite of what you wanted. You're doing what you think is right, Lena said, too tired for anger. You always do. That doesn't make it the right thing. She turned to look at him, surprised by the admission. He was staring straight ahead, his profile sharp against the window light. I've spent the last 6 months learning to interrogate my instincts, he continued, to question whether what I think is right is actually just about control. It's harder than you'd think, separating genuine concern from the need to manage outcomes. Is that what your therapist tells you? Among other things. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. She's brutally honest. I hate it. But I keep going back because apparently that means it's working. Despite everything, Lena felt warmth bloom in her chest. The fact that he was trying, that he was willing to examine himself this way, it meant something. I'm proud of you, she said softly, for doing the work. It's not easy. Neither is being without you. The words slipped out before he could stop them. He looked at her, raw honesty in his eyes. I miss you, Lena. Every day. Not just the big things, but the small ones. Coffee in the morning, your terrible singing in the shower, the way you'd fall asleep during movies and deny it when I called you out. I miss all of it. Lena's throat tightened. Dante, I'm not trying to manipulate you. I wanted you to know that letting you go was the hardest thing I've ever done. And if I could go back, if I could do things differently, I would. He paused. But I can't. So all I can do is try to be better going forward. For you, for our daughter, for myself. The car pulled up outside her building, a modest brownstone in Park Slope, nothing like the luxury penthouses Dante inhabited. He looked out the window, taking in the neighborhood with an assessing gaze she recognized. This is nice, he said. Good area, close to the park. It's home. Lena gathered her bag, preparing to leave. Thank you for the ride. Lena. He caught her hand before she could open the door. I know you don't trust me right now. I know I have to earn that back. But I meant what I said. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever it takes, however long it takes. I'm here. She looked down at their joined hands, at the way his fingers threaded through hers like they'd been designed to fit together. I'm not ready to trust you yet, she admitted. But I'm willing to see if you can prove me wrong. That's all I'm asking for. He raised her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that made her breath catch. Call me if you need anything, even if it's just to tell me I'm being overbearing. I can take it. I know you can. She pulled her hand away gently, needing the distance. Goodbye, Dante. Not goodbye. I'll see you soon. She climbed out of the car, feeling his eyes on her as she made her way up the front steps. Only when she was inside with the door closed did she hear the car pull away. Lena made it to her apartment before her knees gave out. She sank onto the couch, her hands shaking, the baby doing acrobatics that would have been uncomfortable if she wasn't so numb with shock. Her phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. "He's watching you now. Good. You're going to need protection for what's coming." This time, Lena called Dante immediately. He answered on the first ring. "What happened?" Another message. Her voice shook despite her best efforts to control it. "Dante, I'm scared. I'm on my way back. Don't open the door for anyone except me. The security team is already in position. They'll make sure no one gets to you." "What's happening? Who is this?" "I don't know yet." His voice was hard, cold with fury. "But I'm going to find out. And Lena? They've made a very serious mistake by threatening you." The line went dead. Lena sat in her quiet apartment, one hand on her belly, and waited for the storm she'd tried so hard to escape to come crashing back into her life. Dante arrived within 20 minutes, which meant he'd broken every traffic law between Manhattan and Brooklyn. Lena heard his footsteps on the stairs before his knock. 3 sharp raps that somehow conveyed both urgency and restraint. She opened the door to find him flanked by 2 men in dark suits who radiated the kind of quiet competence that came from military training. Dante's eyes swept over her, cataloging every detail like he was checking for damage. "You're okay," he said, and it wasn't quite a question. "Physically, yes." Lena stepped back to let him in, acutely aware of how small her apartment must seem to him. The entire space could probably fit in his living room. Emotionally is a different story. The 2 men remained in the hallway. Dante closed the door, then immediately began moving through the apartment with methodical precision, checking windows, examining sight lines, his expression growing darker with each discovery. "This building has no security," he said flatly. "The front door doesn't even lock properly. Anyone could walk in. It's Brooklyn, not a war zone. It might as well be right now." He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "I'm having proper locks installed tomorrow, security cameras for the common areas, and you're getting a panic button that connects directly to my team. Dante, you can't just renovate my building. Watch me." He looked up, his eyes hard. "Show me the messages. All of them." Lena handed over her phone, watched his jaw clench as he read through them, his knuckles going white around the device. When he finally looked up, something dangerous glittered in his expression. "This isn't random," he said quietly. "Someone's been tracking your movements. They knew you were at the clinic yesterday. They knew exactly when to send these messages for maximum impact." "How can you tell?" "The timing, the specificity." He handed back her phone. "Whoever this is, they want you scared. They want you running to me for protection, which means this is about leverage." "Leverage for what?" "That's what I intend to find out." He moved to her window, looking down at the street below. "There's a black sedan at the corner. My team. They'll maintain a perimeter, rotate shifts every 8 hours. You won't see them, but they'll be there." Lena sank onto her couch, exhaustion pulling at her bones. The baby had finally settled, a small mercy given her heart was still racing. "This is insane. 2 days ago, my biggest concern was whether I'd packed the right things for my hospital bag. Now I have armed guards and mysterious threats and—" Her voice broke. "I can't do this, Dante. I can't bring a baby into this." He was beside her in an instant, crouching down so they were eye level. "Hey, look at me." When she did, his expression had softened, the ruthless businessman replaced by something more human. "I know this is terrifying. I know it's everything you tried to escape, but I promise you, I will find out who's behind this and I will end it. You and our daughter will be safe. That's not negotiable." "You can't promise that. You can't control everything, no matter how much you want to." "No, but I can control this." He reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. "I've already made calls. Every resource I have is being directed at finding this person. Marcus is the best tracker in the business. If there's a digital trail, he'll find it. And I have people reaching out to my contacts, seeing if anyone's heard whispers about moves against me or my family." "Your family," Lena repeated. "I'm not your family anymore." "You're carrying my child. That makes you family. Divorce papers don't change that." His hand lingered near her face, and she found herself leaning into the warmth despite knowing better. Have you eaten today? The change of subject threw her. What? Food. Have you had any? When she hesitated, he stood, moving to her small kitchen. When did you eat last? I had toast this morning, I think. You think? He opened her refrigerator, frowning at the contents. Lena, there's nothing in here but yogurt and some questionable leftovers. I haven't had much appetite. That's not an excuse. He was already on his phone again. I'm having food delivered. Real food. What is the baby like? Despite everything, Lena felt a smile tug at her lips. The baby doesn't have preferences yet. She just steals all my nutrients and makes me crave weird things at 3 a.m. Like what? Last week it was pickles and ice cream. Very cliché. This week it's been oranges. I can't get enough of them. Oranges. Noted. He placed an order, rattling off enough food for a small army. When he hung up, he moved back to the couch, sitting beside her but maintaining careful distance. Tell me about your birth plan. The details. Why? Because I want to understand what you're preparing for, and because talking about logistics is probably better than dwelling on anonymous threats. He had a point. Lena shifted, trying to find a comfortable position. I've taken a prenatal class. Learned about breathing techniques, labor positions, pain management options. Martha, my neighbor, she's a trained doula. She's been helping me prepare mentally and physically. I'd like to meet her. When Lena started to protest, Dante held up a hand. Not to vet her or intimidate her, to thank her. For being there for you when I wasn't. The sincerity in his voice made her chest ache. You're trying really hard, aren't you? To be different. I'm trying to be someone worthy of being her father. He looked down at his hands, those capable hands that had held her so many times. I've been reading books about pregnancy, childbirth, infant care. Did you know newborns can't regulate their own temperature? That their skulls are soft to allow passage through the birth canal? There's so much I didn't know, so much I need to learn. You've been reading baby books? Lena couldn't keep the surprise from her voice. Every night before bed, my assistant thinks I've lost my mind. I have a stack of them on my nightstand taller than most business reports. A self-deprecating smile touched his lips. I even bought a practice doll. To learn how to hold her properly, support her head. I looked ridiculous, but the book said hands-on practice was important. The image of Dante Russo, feared businessman and corporate titan, practicing with a baby doll in his penthouse was so absurd that Lena laughed, really laughed, the kind that shook her whole body and made the baby kick in protest. I'm glad you find my dedication amusing, Dante said dryly, but she could see the pleasure in his eyes at making her laugh. I'm sorry, She tried to catch her breath. The mental image is too much. Please tell me you have pictures. Absolutely not. That's classified information. I bet your assistant took some. Probably. She finds my entire journey into impending fatherhood endlessly entertaining. He shifted closer, his expression turning serious. But it's not a joke to me, Lena. None of this is. I want to be prepared. I want to know what to do when she cries, how to soothe her, how to keep her safe and healthy and loved. The word loved hung in the air between them, weighted with meaning. Lena felt her throat tighten with emotion. She's going to be so lucky to have you, she whispered. If you can actually be the man you're describing. I will be. I have to be. His hand moved to rest on the couch between them, close enough that she could feel the heat of it. Because the alternative, failing her the way I failed you, that's not an option I can live with. Before Lena could respond, her phone buzzed. They both tensed. Dante leaned over to look at the screen. It's just the food delivery, he said, the relief evident in his voice. I'll get it. He was back moments later with enough takeout containers to feed a small neighborhood. Thai food, Italian, Chinese, even a burger with fries. I wasn't sure what you'd want, he explained, setting everything on her small dining table. So I got options. This is enough food for a week. You need to eat, both of you. He started opening containers, the domesticity of the moment surreal given the circumstances. Come on, pick something. Lena chose the Thai food, pad see ew, with extra vegetables, and found herself ravenous once she started eating. Dante watched her with satisfaction, picking at some of the Italian himself, but mostly focused on making sure she ate enough. "When's your next appointment?" he asked between bites. "Next Tuesday, just a standard checkup. I want to come with you." Lena paused, her fork halfway to her mouth. "Dante, I know, I'm pushing again, but Lena, I've missed everything. Every milestone, every appointment, every moment of this pregnancy. Please, let me be there for this one thing. Let me hear her heartbeat, see her on the ultrasound if they do one. Let me start being present." She studied his face, searching for the angle, the manipulation, but all she saw was raw hope mixed with fear of rejection. This was costing him, she realized, asking instead of demanding, being vulnerable instead of controlling. "Okay," she said finally, "you can come, but you let me do the talking. You're there to observe, not to interrogate my doctor or try to take over my medical care." "Deal." The relief in his smile was genuine. "Thank you." They ate in companionable silence for a while, the only sounds the quiet clink of utensils and the ambient noise of the city outside. Lena found herself relaxing despite everything, lulled by the simple act of sharing a meal with someone who wasn't asking anything of her in that moment. "I've been thinking about names," Dante said eventually, his tone careful, like he was testing dangerous waters. "For our daughter, do you have any preferences?" Lena's hand moved to her belly, protective and instinctive. She'd been holding the name close, a secret between her and the child she hadn't met yet. Sharing it with Dante felt like surrendering something precious. But he was her father. He deserved to be part of this. "Sophia," she said quietly. "I've been thinking about Sophia. It means wisdom." Dante went very still. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "Sophia was my grandmother's name, my father's mother. She died when I was 8, but she was the only person in that house who made me feel like I mattered for who I was, not what I'd become." "Didn't know that." Lena felt tears prick her eyes. "I just like the name, the way it sounds, what it means. It's perfect." He looked at her with such naked gratitude that she had to look away. "Sophia Russo, our daughter." "Sophia Cross Russo," Lena corrected gently. "She gets both our names. She belongs to both of us." "Sophia Cross Russo," Dante repeated, testing the name. "Yes, that's right. That's perfect." Her phone buzzed again. This time, both of them flinched. Dante grabbed it before she could, his expression darkening as he read. "What does it say?" Lena asked, her appetite vanishing. "Enjoying your dinner? He can't protect you forever. There are always cracks in the armor." Dante's jaw clenched. "They're watching right now. They saw the food delivery." Fear sliced through Lena, cold and sharp. "They're here? Outside?" Apparently. Dante was already on his phone, barking orders to someone. "I want a full sweep of the area. Every building, every rooftop, every vehicle. Someone is close enough to see this apartment, and I want them found. Now." He hung up and moved to the window, careful to stay to the side. "Don't stand near the windows until we know where they are." "This is insane!" Lena struggled to her feet, adrenaline making her shake. "Someone is watching me eat dinner? Sending me messages about cracks in armor? What does that even mean?" "It means they want to demonstrate how vulnerable you are, how easily they can reach you." Dante pulled the curtains closed with sharp, efficient movements. "It's a psychological tactic. Make you feel exposed, unsafe, so you're more likely to comply with whatever they want." "Which is what, exactly? What could anyone possibly want from me?" "From you? Nothing." He turned to face her, his expression grim. "From me? Everything. Your leverage, Lena. The most effective kind. They've figured out that threatening you will get my attention faster than any business move or financial pressure. So this is about you, your enemies, your world, your problems." The old anger flared hot in her chest. "This is exactly what I was trying to escape." "I know." The admission seemed to cost him. "I know, and I'm sorry, but we're past the point of escaping. They know about you now. They know about Sophia, and the only way forward is through." "Through what?" "Through me eliminating the threat." His voice dropped to that dangerous quiet she recognized from exactly twice before, Once when someone had tried to sabotage one of his developments, and once when a business rival had made insinuations about Lena's past. Both times, the threat had disappeared completely within 48 hours. She'd never asked how, never wanted to know. "What are you going to do?" she asked, not sure she wanted the answer. "Whatever is necessary to keep you safe." He moved closer, his presence filling the small space. "I need you to trust me on this. I need you to let me handle it my way. Your way usually involves things I don't want to know about." "Probably. But the end result is the same. You and Sophia will be protected. That's all that matters." Lena sank back onto the couch, feeling the weight of inevitability settle over her. She'd tried to build a life outside Dante's world, tried to keep their daughter safe from the darkness that seemed to follow him. But fate or circumstance or simple bad luck had dragged her right back into it. "I can't live like this long term," she said quietly, jumping at every phone notification, afraid to stand near windows, having armed guards shadow my every move. "That's not a life, that's a prison." "It won't be long term." Dante sat beside her, close enough that she could feel the tension radiating off him. "I promise you, this is temporary. Once the threat is neutralized, how can you be sure there won't be another threat, and another after that?" She turned to face him fully. "Your world is built on power plays and territorial disputes. There will always be someone trying to find your weakness, trying to exploit it, and now they know exactly where to look." The truth of it hung between them, inescapable. Dante's face was carved in hard lines, his eyes reflecting a struggle she could only partially understand. "Then we adapt," he said finally. "We find a way to keep you and Sophia safe while still giving you the life you want, the freedom you need. It's not impossible. It just requires better planning, better security, better control," Lena finished, which brings us right back to the problem that broke our marriage in the first place. "No." He shifted to face her, his intensity almost overwhelming. "The problem with our marriage was that I tried to control you, to fit you into my life without considering what you needed. That's not what I'm suggesting now. I'm suggesting we work together to solve this. Your input, your boundaries, your decisions. I provide resources and protection, but you decide how we use them. And when my decisions put us at risk, put Sophia at risk, what then? Then we have a conversation, like adults, like partners." He reached for her hand, waiting until she gave it before continuing. "I'm not saying I'll always agree with you. I'm not saying it won't be hard or that I won't struggle with my control issues, but I'm saying I'll try, really try, to hear you, to respect your choices, to build something together instead of just imposing my will." Lena wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe this could work, that they could somehow navigate the impossible space between his world and her need for autonomy. But belief required trust, and trust required proof. "Show me," she said. "Right now. Show me you mean it." "How?" "Tell me the truth about what you're planning to do to whoever is sending these messages. No sanitized version, no protecting me from the reality. The actual truth about what happens next." Dante's jaw tightened. She could see him weighing his options, calculating risks. This was the moment, where he either chose transparency or fell back into old patterns of control through information management. "All right," he said finally. "The truth is that I have people reaching out to every contact I have in this city and beyond. We're pulling favors, gathering intelligence, tracking digital footprints. When we identify who's behind this, and we will, I'll have a conversation with them. A very direct conversation about the consequences of threatening my family." "What kind of consequences?" "The kind that make it clear this can never happen again. Financial pressure, professional isolation, legal action if applicable. I'll find out what they value and I'll make it hurt." "But not violence." She needed to hear him say it. "You won't hurt them physically. Not unless they give me no choice." His honesty was brutal. "If they come after you directly, if they try to harm you or Sophia, then yes, I'll do whatever is necessary to stop them. But I'm not a monster, Lena. I don't enjoy violence. I just don't shy away from it when the people I love are at stake." The people he loved. The phrase settled over her like a weighted blanket, comforting and suffocating at once. "You still love me," she said, not quite a question. "I never stopped." The admission came out quiet, raw. "Not when you left, not during the divorce, not in the 6 months since. I just learned to live with it, to accept that what I wanted didn't matter as much as what you needed. Lena felt tears slip down her cheeks before she could stop them. Hormones and exhaustion and the sheer emotional weight of everything catching up with her. I loved you too. She couldn't finish. Couldn't admit that somewhere beneath the fear and anger and self-preservation, something still stirred when he looked at her like she was the center of his universe. I know. He reached up, gently brushing the tears from her face. You don't have to say it. You don't owe me anything. I just need you to know that whatever happens, whatever you decide about us, I'm not going anywhere. Sophia will have a father who loves her and a mother who put her first even when it was hard. That's already more than I had growing up. The parallel struck her, Dante, trying so desperately not to become his father, trying to break cycles of emotional distance and conditional affection. It was the most vulnerable she'd ever seen him, stripped of the armor he usually wore. Okay, she whispered. We try. We work together, we communicate, and we see if we can actually make this work. For Sophia. And maybe... She trailed off, not ready to finish that thought. Maybe, Dante echoed, and something like hope flickered in his eyes. Her phone buzzed again. This time, Dante's hand shot out to grab it before she could even react. His expression went from tense to thunderous as he read. What? Lena demanded. What does it say? Sweet moment. But sentiment won't save you when the time comes. Tell Dante his sins are coming home to roost. He looked up, his eyes blazing. This is someone from my past. Someone with a grudge specific enough to reference old wrongs. What kind of old wrongs? I don't know yet. But I've made enemies over the years, business deals that went bad, partnerships that dissolved, people who felt I didn't give them what they were owed. It could be any number of things. How comforting. Lena wrapped her arms around her belly, protective and afraid. So we're dealing with someone who has nothing to lose and everything to prove. Which makes them dangerous. Dante was already dialing, his movements sharp with controlled fury, but also predictable. People operating from grievance make mistakes. They get emotional, sloppy. We'll find them. He stepped away to take the call, his voice low and urgent. Lena listened to fragments, something about financial records, old contracts, former associates. The machinery of his world spinning into motion, vast and inexorable. When he hung up, his expression was grim but determined. We have a lead. One of my former business partners, someone I bought out 5 years ago, has been making noise lately, claiming I stole his company, ruined his reputation. My team is looking into his current activities, seeing if there's a connection. 5 years is a long time to hold a grudge. Not in my world. Dante moved back to her, crouching down so they were eye level again. Listen to me. I know this is overwhelming. I know it's terrifying and not what you signed up for. But I need you to stay strong just a little longer. Can you do that? For Sophia? Lena looked into his eyes. Those gray eyes that had captivated her from the first moment, that held storms and steel and something softer she'd almost forgotten existed. She thought about the baby growing inside her, about the life she'd imagined for them. Quiet and safe and simple. That life had been a fantasy. The reality was sitting in front of her, complicated and dangerous, and offering something she'd thought impossible, a genuine partnership with the man she'd loved enough to marry and feared enough to leave. I can stay strong, she said. But Dante, when this is over, when whoever is behind this is dealt with, we need to have a serious conversation about what comes next. About how we build a life that doesn't require armed guards and constant vigilance. Because I meant what I said. I won't raise Sophia in a fortress. When this is over, Dante promised, we'll build whatever life you want. Together. I swear it. He sealed the promise with a kiss to her forehead, gentle and reverent. Lena closed her eyes, letting herself lean into him for just a moment. Letting herself believe that maybe, impossibly, they could find a way through the darkness into something better. Her phone stayed silent for the rest of the night. Dante's team maintained their perimeter, invisible guardians against threats she couldn't see. And somewhere out there, someone was watching, waiting, preparing their next move. But for now, in this small apartment in Brooklyn, Lena let herself rest. Let Dante stay, sitting vigil in the chair across from her couch. Let herself believe that maybe she wasn't as alone as she'd thought. Sophia kicked, strong and insistent, and Lena smiled despite everything. Whatever came next, whatever dangers lurked in the shadows, her daughter was already a fighter, already strong. She'd need to be. Because the storm brewing around them was far from over. Lena woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of low voices in her kitchen. For a disoriented moment, she forgot where she was, forgot everything that had happened. Then reality crashed back and she sat up too quickly, making her head spin. Easy. Dante appeared in the doorway, concern etched across his features. You need to move slower. Here, I made you tea. Caffeine-free, like the book said. She accepted the mug, staring at him in confusion. He looked rumpled, his shirt wrinkled and his jaw dark with stubble, like he'd been up all night. Did you sleep at all? She asked. A few hours in the chair. He gestured to the armchair across from the couch where she'd fallen asleep. I wanted to stay close, in case anything happened. Dante, you can't just camp out in my apartment. I had Marcus come by an hour ago. We have a positive ID on our threat. His expression hardened. It's exactly who we suspected. Vincent Carrera, the partner I bought out 5 years ago. Lena set down her tea, her hand suddenly unsteady. And he's been nursing his grudge all this time, lost his wife in the divorce, lost his standing in the business community, lost everything he thought defined him. He blames me for all of it. Dante moved to sit on the coffee table in front of her, close but not crowding. His financials show he's nearly bankrupt, desperate, which makes him unpredictable. What does he want? Money, probably. Or revenge. Maybe both. Dante's jaw clenched. He's been surveilling you for at least 2 weeks, ever since he found out about the pregnancy. We tracked his movements through traffic cameras and credit card receipts. He's been following you, learning your routine. Ice slid down Lena's spine. 2 weeks? He's been watching me for 2 weeks and I didn't notice? You had no reason to be looking for surveillance. That's on me. The guilt in his voice was palpable. I should have had protection on you from the moment we divorced. Should have anticipated that someone might try to use you against me. You couldn't have known I was pregnant. No, but I knew you were important to me. That should have been enough. He reached for her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. I'm not making that mistake again. From now until this is resolved, you don't go anywhere without protection. And I mean anywhere, Lena. She wanted to argue, to push back against the restrictions, but fear overrode pride. Someone had been following her, watching her daily life, learning when she was most vulnerable. The violation of it made her skin crawl. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now I handle it. The dangerous edge returned to his voice. I'm meeting with Carrera this afternoon, making it very clear that coming after you was the worst decision he's ever made. Alone? Dante, if he's desperate, I won't be alone. I'll have my team. But Lena, I need you to promise me something. He waited until she met his eyes. Whatever happens, whatever you hear about this meeting, trust that I did what was necessary. Can you do that? That depends on what necessary means. It means I'm going to give him a choice. Walk away, and I'll help him rebuild his life somewhere far from here. Set him up with enough money to start over, no strings attached. Or continue down this path and face consequences he really won't like. And if he doesn't take the deal? Dante's expression went cold, remote. Then I remove him as a threat, permanently. What does permanently mean? It means you don't have to worry about him anymore. Ever. He stood, moving toward the window to check the street below. I have lawyers standing by with restraining orders, financial leverage that will make his life very difficult if he refuses to cooperate, and contingencies for every possible outcome. Vincent Carrera will not hurt you or our daughter. I guarantee it. Lena pressed her hands to her belly, feeling Sophia moving beneath her palms. I don't want you to become someone you're not because of us. Someone who does terrible things in the name of protection. I've always been this person, Lena. You just never had to see it. He turned back to face her, his expression softening slightly. The difference is that now I'm choosing to be transparent about it. To let you see the parts of me I used to hide because I thought they'd scare you away. And maybe they will, but at least you'll know the truth. The truth is that you're willing to destroy a man to keep us safe. The truth is that I'm willing to do whatever it takes. He moved back to her, kneeling so they were eye level. I won't apologize for that. I won't pretend to be someone I'm not. But I will promise you this. I don't act on impulse. I don't cause unnecessary harm. And I always exhaust peaceful options first. Vincent will get his chance to walk away. What he does with it is his choice. Lena studied his face, searching for the monster she should fear. But all she saw was a man who loved fiercely and protected without hesitation. It should terrify her. Part of her wanted it to terrify her. Instead, she felt something dangerously close to gratitude. When is the meeting? She asked. 2:00. At my office. Neutral ground with witnesses. He checked his watch. Which means I need to leave soon to prepare. But first I want you to meet someone. Who? As if on cue, there was a knock at the door. Dante checked his phone, then moved to answer it. A woman stepped inside, late 30s, athletic build, with sharp eyes that cataloged everything in seconds. She wore professional attire that didn't quite hide what Lena suspected was a weapon at her hip. Lena, this is Rachel Torres, former Secret Service, now head of my personal security team. Rachel, this is Lena Cross, the mother of my child and the person you're going to be protecting for the foreseeable future. Rachel offered her hand, her grip firm and confident. Ms. Cross, it's an honor. I've been briefed on the situation and I want you to know you're in good hands. I don't need a bodyguard, Lena protested weakly. With respect, ma'am, you do. Rachel's voice was professional but kind. At least until we neutralize the current threat. I promise to be as unobtrusive as possible. You won't even know I'm there most of the time. She'll be staying in the building, Dante explained. In the apartment directly below yours. The previous tenant was very motivated to relocate when I made him an offer. You bought out my downstairs neighbor? Lena stared at him. Dante, that's insane. That's practical. He picked up his jacket, shrugging into it. Rachel has direct access through the fire escape if needed. She'll maintain eyes on your apartment while remaining out of sight. And before you argue, remember, this is temporary, just until Carrera is handled. Lena wanted to fight it, to insist she didn't need this level of protection. But looking at Rachel's calm competence and Dante's unwavering resolve, she knew it was a battle she'd already lost. Fine, she said, but I have a doctor's appointment this morning. Will she be coming with me to that too? I'll be coming with you to that. Dante's tone brooked no argument. Rachel will maintain perimeter security while we're inside. Both of you? Dante, it's just a checkup. Both of us. He moved to her, pressing a kiss to her forehead that felt like a promise and a prayer. I'll be back by 9 to pick you up. In the meantime, Rachel will be here if you need anything. And Lena, please don't try to slip away or prove you don't need protection. Not today. She heard the plea beneath the command and found herself nodding. Okay, I'll wait for you. Relief flashed across his face. He turned to Rachel. Anything happens, anything at all. You'll be the first call, Rachel assured him. Go handle your meeting. We'll be fine here. After Dante left, Lena found herself alone with her new shadow. Rachel moved through the apartment with professional efficiency, checking locks and sightlines just as Dante had the night before. You don't have to do that, Lena said. He already checked everything. Force of habit, ma'am, and Mr. Russo is thorough, but I like to verify personally. Rachel finished her inspection and turned with a slight smile. For what it's worth, I've worked for a lot of powerful men. Dante Russo is one of the good ones. He threatened a man yesterday, with lawyers and worse. He protected you yesterday. There's a difference. Rachel settled into the chair Dante had occupied all night. I know his world seems brutal from the outside, and it can be. But there are rules, codes of conduct, lines most people won't cross. Dante operates within those lines. Barely sometimes, but he operates within them. And Vincent Carrera? Does he operate within the lines? Carrera is desperate, which makes him dangerous. Rachel's expression turned serious. Desperate men do unpredictable things. They take risks they shouldn't, make moves that don't make strategic sense. That's why we're being extra cautious. Until we know what he really wants, until we know if he's working alone or has partners, we assume worst-case scenarios. Lena pressed her hands to her belly, feeling the familiar flutter of movement. Sophia was awake, doing her morning acrobatics. I just want her to be safe. I want to bring her into a world where I'm not constantly looking over my shoulder." "You will," Rachel said with quiet confidence. "Dante won't rest until every threat is eliminated. I've seen him work. When it comes to people he cares about, he's relentless. He cares too much sometimes. It becomes control." "Maybe. But right now, that control is the only thing standing between you and someone who wishes you harm. Sometimes protection looks like control. The trick is knowing the difference." Lena didn't have an answer for that. She made herself breakfast while Rachel maintained her quiet vigil, checking her phone periodically and communicating with someone in brief, coded phrases. It should have felt invasive, having a stranger in her space, monitoring her every move. Instead, it felt oddly comforting, like having a guardian angel who carried a weapon. Dante returned promptly at 9, looking more put together than he had earlier. Fresh suit, clean shave, the corporate armor firmly back in place. But his eyes went soft when they landed on Lena. "Ready?" he asked. "As I'll ever be." The drive to the clinic was quiet, Dante's hand resting on the seat between them like an invitation she wasn't quite ready to accept. Rachel followed in a separate vehicle, maintaining distance, but staying visible in the mirrors. "Are you nervous?" Lena asked as they pulled into the parking garage. "About the appointment?" "Terrified," Dante admitted. "I've been reading about what these visits entail, but reading and experiencing are different things. What if I mess up? What if I say something wrong or ask a stupid question?" "There are no stupid questions when it comes to your child." Lena felt a smile tug at her lips despite everything. "And besides, I'll be there. We'll figure it out together." "Together," he echoed, and something in his expression made her chest tight. Dr. Chen greeted them with professional warmth, her eyes flickering with interest when Dante introduced himself as the baby's father. If she recognized his name or found it odd that he was suddenly present after months of Lena coming alone, she didn't comment. "Everything looks good," Dr. Chen said after the examination. "Baby's position is excellent. Heartbeat is strong and steady. You're measuring right on track for 33 weeks. "Can we hear the heartbeat?" Dante asked, his voice rougher than usual. "Of course." Dr. Chen positioned the Doppler, and suddenly the room filled with the rapid thump-thump-thump of Sophia's heart. Lena watched Dante's face transform. All the hard edges softened, replaced by wonder and something that looked suspiciously like tears. His hand found hers, gripping tight as he listened to their daughter's heartbeat for the first time. "That's her," he whispered. "That's really her." "That's really her," Lena confirmed, her own eyes damp. Dr. Chen smiled, clearly moved by the moment. "Would you like to see her? We can do a quick ultrasound if you'd like." "Please," Dante said immediately, "if it's not too much trouble." "No trouble at all." Moments later, they were both staring at the grainy image on the screen. Sophia in profile, her tiny features visible, one hand curled near her face. "She's beautiful," Dante breathed. "She looks like you." "She looks like a baby." But Lena was smiling, unable to look away from their daughter. "But yes, she's beautiful." Dr. Chen printed several images, handing them to Dante, who accepted them like they were precious artifacts. 3 more weeks, give or take. Are you both prepared?" "Getting there," Lena said. "I'll be there," Dante added, "for the birth, if Lena agrees." All eyes turned to her. Lena felt the weight of the decision, the significance of allowing him into that most vulnerable moment. But looking at his face, at the raw hope and barely contained fear, she found her answer. "Yes," she said quietly. "You can be there. You should be there." The gratitude in his expression was almost painful to witness. "Thank you. I promise I won't let you down." "Just don't pass out," Dr. Chen advised with a smile. "We have enough to handle without catching fathers who faint." "I won't pass out." Dante's hand tightened on Lena's. "I'll be exactly what she needs me to be." They left the clinic with ultrasound pictures and a sense of fragile hope. Rachel was waiting by the car, her eyes scanning the parking garage with professional paranoia. "All clear?" Dante asked. "All clear. Though we should move. We've been stationary too long." Back in the car, Dante checked his watch. "I need to head to the office soon for the meeting." "I know." Lena studied the ultrasound picture in her hands. "Be careful, please." "I'm always careful." He reached over, his hand covering hers on the image of their daughter. But I promise I'll come back. I have too much to live for now to take unnecessary risks. He drove her back to Brooklyn, waiting until she was safely inside with Rachel before leaving. Lena watched his car disappear down the street and felt anxiety twist in her gut. In a few hours, he'd be sitting across from Vincent Carrera, a desperate man with nothing to lose. So many things could go wrong. The afternoon crawled by. Lena tried to distract herself with work, with preparations for the baby, with anything that would keep her mind occupied. But she kept checking her phone, waiting for updates that didn't come. At 2:15, Rachel's phone buzzed. She answered, listened, then looked at Lena with an expression she couldn't read. "The meeting started," Rachel said. "Carrera showed up with his lawyer. No weapons detected. Dante's team is in position." "What does that mean?" "It means we wait, and we trust that Dante knows what he's doing." Waiting was torture. Lena paced her small apartment, one hand pressed to her belly, where Sophia kicked and squirmed, picking up on her mother's anxiety. 3 o'clock came and went, then 3:30. At 4 o'clock, Rachel's phone rang again. This time, she answered and immediately handed it to Lena. "It's for you." Lena grabbed the phone, her heart hammering. "Dante? Are you okay?" "I'm fine." His voice was steady, controlled. "It's over." Carrera took the deal. Relief made her knees weak. She sank onto the couch, pressing a hand to her chest. "What deal? What happened?" He admitted everything, the surveillance, the messages, the plan to use you as leverage to force me into a business deal that would have bankrupted me. He was desperate, Lena. Nearly $3 million in debt, his ex-wife bleeding him dry in alimony, his reputation destroyed. He saw you as his last chance to get back at me. And you just gave him money to go away? I gave him a choice. Take $5 million, sign away any claim to past grievances, relocate to the West Coast and never contact either of us again, or face criminal charges for stalking and harassment, financial audits that would expose what I strongly suspect is fraud and embezzlement, and the full weight of every resource I possess making his life unbearable. He took the money. He took the money. My lawyers are drawing up the paperwork now. By tomorrow, he'll be on a plane to California with enough cash to start over, and we'll be free. Lena felt tears slip down her cheeks, relief and exhaustion overwhelming her. It's really over? It's really over. His voice softened. I'm coming to you now. I want to see you, make sure you're okay. I'm okay. Scared, but okay. You don't have to be scared anymore. I've got you. Both of you. He arrived 40 minutes later, still in his suit but looking somehow lighter, like a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. Lena opened the door and he pulled her into his arms, careful of her belly, his face buried in her hair. I was so worried, she whispered against his chest. I know. I'm sorry I couldn't call sooner. The negotiations took longer than expected. He pulled back, his hands framing her face. But it's done. You're safe. Sophia's safe. That's all that matters. Did you really give him $5 million? I would have given him 10 if that's what it took to make him go away. His thumb brushed away her tears. Money I can always make more of. You and our daughter, you're irreplaceable. Rachel cleared her throat from across the room. I'll give you two some privacy. Call if you need me. After she left, Lena and Dante stood in the quiet of her apartment, the reality of what had almost happened settling over them. I don't know how to do this, Lena admitted. How to be with you again. How to trust that it won't all fall apart like before. We take it slow, one day at a time. He guided her to the couch, sitting beside her. We communicate. We set boundaries. We actually build a partnership instead of me trying to fit you into my life. And most importantly, we put Sophia first. Always. What does that look like, putting her first? It looks like me being present. Actually present. Not just physically there, but mentally checked out thinking about the next deal. It looks like me listening when you tell me what you need instead of assuming I know better. It looks like compromise and flexibility and all the things I'm terrible at but willing to learn. And when you backslide, because you will, control is hard to unlearn. Then you call me on it. You tell me I'm being an ass and I course correct. He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. I'm not saying I'll be perfect. I'm saying I'll try. That I'll keep trying, even when it's hard, even when every instinct tells me to take control and manage the situation, because losing you once nearly destroyed me. I won't make that mistake again." Lena looked at their joined hands, at the way they fit together despite everything that had broken between them. "I'm not ready to move back in with you. I'm not ready to jump back into being Mrs. Russo. I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking for a chance, to prove I can be better, to be the partner you need and the father Sophia deserves." "Okay," she whispered, "we can try. But Dante, if this doesn't work, if we can't figure out how to make this partnership real instead of just something we talk about, I need you to promise you won't fight me on custody, that we'll work out something fair that puts Sophia's needs first." "I promise." "But Lena?" He waited until she met his eyes. "I don't plan on failing. Not at this. Not when it's the most important thing I've ever done." He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his lips brushed hers in a kiss so gentle it made her chest ache. It tasted like promise and possibility and all the complicated feelings she'd been trying to ignore for months. When they finally pulled apart, Sophia kicked hard enough to make Lena gasp. Dante's hand immediately went to her belly, his eyes widening when he felt the movement beneath his palm. "Was that her?" "That was her. She's very active today." "She knows," Dante said with wonder. "She knows her father's here." "Or she's protesting all the emotional drama," Lena said dryly. "Hard to tell with babies." He laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "Either way, I'll take it." He kept his hand on her belly, feeling their daughter move. 3 more weeks, then we get to meet her." 3 weeks, Lena echoed. "Are you ready?" "Absolutely not." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "But I will be. We both will be." Lena leaned into him, letting herself rest against his solid warmth. For the first time in months, she felt something close to safe. The threats were neutralized. Dante was here, trying in ways that felt genuine. And soon, very soon, they'd both meet the little girl who had already changed everything. Outside, the city hummed with life. Rachel maintained her quiet vigil in the apartment below. And somewhere in California, Vincent Carrera was boarding a plane with $5 million and the knowledge that he'd gotten off easy. But inside this small Brooklyn apartment, 2 people who had loved and lost each other were finding their way back. Not to what they were, but to what they could become. For themselves, for each other, and for the daughter they both already loved more than life itself. Sophia kicked again, and Dante smiled. The kind of smile that transformed his entire face, that reminded Lena why she'd fallen for him in the first place. Maybe, just maybe, they could make this work after all. The 3 weeks that followed the confrontation with Carrera felt like existing in a strange bubble outside normal time. Dante showed up every morning with breakfast, real food, not the toast and yogurt Lena had been subsisting on. He'd learned her current cravings, arriving with fresh oranges and the specific brand of granola she couldn't get enough of. He never stayed longer than she seemed comfortable with, never pushed for more than she was willing to give. But he was always there, present in a way he'd never managed during their marriage. On a crisp October morning, 2 days before her due date, Lena woke to contractions that felt different from the Braxton Hicks she'd been experiencing for weeks. These were sharper, more insistent, radiating from her lower back around to her belly with rhythmic precision. She checked the time. 5:30 in the morning. The contractions were still 20 minutes apart, not time to panic yet, but her hands shook as she reached for her phone anyway. Dante answered on the first ring, his voice alert despite the early hour. "Lena? What's wrong?" "I think it's time. The contractions started about an hour ago. They're getting stronger." "I'm on my way. Don't move. Don't do anything. I'll be there in 15 minutes. "Dante, it takes 30 minutes to get from Manhattan to—" The line went dead. Lena smiled despite the discomfort, imagining him already throwing on clothes, probably terrifying his driver with demands for speed. She used the time to breathe through another contraction, timing it carefully. 18 minutes since the last one. True to his word, Dante arrived in 17 minutes, looking slightly wild-eyed and carrying the hospital bag he'd insisted on packing himself 2 weeks ago. Rachel appeared moments later, her professional calm a stark contrast to Dante's barely contained panic. "How far apart are the contractions?" Rachel asked, immediately taking charge. 15 to 18 minutes. They're not consistent yet." "Good. We have time. She turned to Dante. You need to breathe. Lena needs you calm, not spiraling. I'm calm, Dante said, his hand shaking as he set down the bag. Completely calm. You're really not, Lena said, but she reached for his hand anyway. But it's kind of endearing. He knelt beside the couch where she was breathing through another contraction, his other hand moving to her belly. Tell me what to do. How can I help? Just be here. That's enough. They stayed in the apartment for another 2 hours, timing contractions and watching them gradually get closer together. 12 minutes, 10 minutes, 8. Martha, the doula from downstairs, arrived and confirmed what Lena already knew. Active labor was beginning. Time to head to the hospital, Martha said gently. Your body's doing exactly what it should. The drive to Brooklyn Methodist was a blur of contractions and Dante's steadying presence. He'd held her hand through each wave of pain, his voice low and calm, as he coached her through breathing techniques he'd clearly memorized from the books. You've got this, he murmured during a particularly intense contraction in the car. You're the strongest person I know. You can do this. Easy for you to say, Lena gasped. You're not the one whose body is trying to turn inside out. I wish I could take this pain for you. I'd do it in a heartbeat. She believed him. That was the terrifying part. She absolutely believed he would if he could. The hospital staff moved with practiced efficiency, getting Lena checked in and settled into a birthing suite. The contractions were coming every 5 minutes now, each one stronger than the last. Martha sat up on one side, Dante on the other, both of them anchoring her through the storm of labor. 6 centimeters dilated, the nurse announced after checking. You're progressing beautifully. 6 centimeters. Halfway there. Lena closed her eyes, gathering strength for what was ahead. The next hours blurred together in a haze of pain and pressure and the constant rhythm of contractions. Dante never left her side. When she needed ice chips, he was there with them. When she needed to walk through the pain, he supported her weight without complaint. When she squeezed his hand hard enough to leave marks, he just held on tighter. I can't do this, Lena sobbed during transition, the pain so intense she couldn't think past it. It's too much, I can't. Yes, you can. Dante's face was inches from hers, his eyes fierce and unwavering. You're already doing it. You're so close, Lena, so close to meeting our daughter, just a little bit longer. I hate you for doing this to me, she panted, only half joking. I know, you can hate me all you want. Just keep breathing. Keep pushing through. 10 centimeters, the nurse announced, her voice bright with encouragement. It's time to push. Terror and relief flooded through Lena in equal measure. This was it. After 9 months, after all the fear and uncertainty and complicated feelings, she was about to meet her daughter. I'm scared, she whispered to Dante during the brief pause before the next contraction. I know, me too. He pressed his forehead to hers. But we're doing this together. You, me, and Sophia. We're already a family. We've got this. The next contraction hit and Lena bore down, pushing with everything she had. Dr. Chen coached her through it, Martha supported her back, and Dante held her hand like it was the only thing keeping him tethered to earth. Good, Lena. That's so good. I can see her head. Keep going, just like that. Push. Breathe. Push again. The pain was astronomical, all-consuming, and then suddenly, one more push, Lena. Give me one more big push. Lena gathered every ounce of strength she had left and pushed, feeling her daughter slip free in a rush of relief so profound she sobbed. The room filled with a new sound, a tiny, indignant cry that made Lena's heart stop and restart. It's a girl, Dr. Chen announced unnecessarily, lifting a squirming, crying bundle. A beautiful, healthy girl. They placed Sophia on Lena's chest, warm and slippery and absolutely perfect. Lena stared down at her daughter's scrunched-up face, at the dark hair plastered to her tiny skull, at fingers no bigger than matchsticks that were already grasping at air. Oh my God, she breathed. Oh my God, Dante, look at her. But Dante couldn't speak. Tears streamed down his face unchecked as he stared at his daughter, one hand hovering over her tiny back, like he was afraid to touch her, afraid she might disappear if he did. You can touch her, Lena said softly. She's real. She's ours. His hand finally made contact, so gentle it was barely there, smoothing over Sophia's back. She's perfect, he managed, his voice wrecked. You're both perfect. Sophia's cries quieted as she felt her parents' touch, her tiny body relaxing against Lena's chest. For a moment, the entire room seemed to hold its breath, witnessing something sacred, the first moments of a new family. The nurses moved around them, efficient and respectful, taking care of the medical necessities while giving them space to bond. When they finally took Sophia to be weighed and measured, Dante went with her, his eyes never leaving his daughter. 7 pounds, 4 ounces, the nurse announced, 20 inches long, all her fingers and toes accounted for. Perfect APGAR scores. She's really okay, Dante asked, his hand stroking Sophia's tiny head. Everything's normal? Everything's absolutely perfect, Mr. Russo. You have a very healthy baby girl. They brought Sophia back wrapped in a hospital blanket, placing her in Lena's arms again. Martha helped with the first attempt at breastfeeding, Sophia latching on with surprising determination for someone only minutes old. Natural-born fighter, Martha said with approval. Just like her mama. Dante had pulled a chair right up beside the bed, unable to take his eyes off his daughter. I can't believe she's real, he kept saying. I can't believe we made her. Well, I did most of the heavy lifting, Lena pointed out, but she was smiling. You just showed up at the end. I'll make up for it, I promise. Every day for the rest of her life, I'll make up for missing the beginning. After the initial flurry of activity settled down and they were moved to a recovery room, the reality of what they'd done began to sink in. They had a daughter, a tiny, perfect person who depended on them for everything. Are you ready for this? Lena asked as Dante held Sophia for the first time, his large hands cradling her with infinite care. For sleepless nights and dirty diapers and crying that never seems to stop? Absolutely not, he admitted, his eyes never leaving Sophia's face. But I'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together. Sophia yawned, her tiny mouth opening wide, and Dante looked like he might cry again. Did you see that? She yawned. That was the most beautiful yawn in the history of yawns. You're ridiculous, Lena said fondly. I'm a father. I'm allowed to be ridiculous about my daughter. Over the next 48 hours, they settled into the strange new rhythm of life with a newborn. Nurses came and went, checking vitals and offering advice. Lena's body slowly began recovering from the trauma of birth, and Sophia slept and ate and made the tiny sounds that had both her parents mesmerized. Dante had transformed overnight. The ruthless businessman had been completely subsumed by an anxious new father who questioned everything. Was Sophia too warm? Too cold? Was she breathing okay? Should her diaper look like that? He'd read all the books, but actual application turned out to be terrifying. You're doing fine, Nasen, Lena assured him for the 100th time as he changed Sophia's diaper with intense concentration. You're not going to break her. She's so small. What if I do something wrong? Then we'll figure it out. That's what parenthood is, just figuring it out as you go. I hate not knowing things. He finished the diaper change, incredibly proud when Sophia didn't immediately protest. But for her, I'll embrace the uncertainty. On the second night during one of Sophia's midnight feedings, Dante finally broached the subject they'd been dancing around. I want you to come home with me, he said quietly, watching Lena nurse their daughter. Not to my penthouse, somewhere new, somewhere that's ours, not just mine, a home we build together for Sophia. Lena's hand stilled on Sophia's back. Dante, I know we're taking things slow. I know you're not ready to jump back into being married. But Lena, I don't want to be a part-time father. I don't want to miss bedtimes and first smiles and all the little moments because we're living in separate places trying to coordinate schedules. I want to wake up in the middle of the night when she cries. I want to be there for every feeding, every diaper change, every tiny milestone. So you want me to move in with you? I want us to build a life together, as a family. Not because we're married or because some paper says we should, but because it's what's best for Sophia, and maybe, he hesitated, vulnerability flickering across his features. Maybe because it's what we both want too, even if we're scared to admit it. Lena looked down at Sophia, at her daughter's perfect face relaxed in sleep. milk-drunk and content. She thought about the past few weeks, about Dante showing up every day with breakfast, about the way he'd held her hand through labor, about the tears on his face when Sophia was born. She thought about the man he was becoming versus the man he'd been. "I'm not ready to remarry you," she said carefully. "I need you to understand that. Moving in together doesn't mean we're back to how things were. I know. I don't want to go back. I want to move forward." He reached across the space between them, his hand covering hers where it rested on Sophia's back. "Different rules this time. Real partnership. Decisions made together. Your career, your independence, your voice. All of it matters as much as mine. More, even. And when you backslide, when you start trying to control things, then you call me on it and I course correct. We have conversations instead of arguments. We work through problems instead of letting them fester until they explode." His eyes were earnest, desperate for her to believe him. "I've been seeing my therapist 3 times a week, working on the control issues, the tendency to compartmentalize, all of it. I'm not perfect and I'm never going to be, but I'm committed to being better. For you, for Sophia, for us." Lena was quiet for a long moment, weighing the risk against the potential reward. Moving in with Dante meant trusting him with her daily life again, with her vulnerability, with the moments when she wasn't strong. It meant believing he could actually change, that the past few weeks weren't just an act that would crumble under the pressure of real cohabitation. But it also meant Sophia would have both her parents present, meant building a family instead of a fractured custody arrangement, meant giving them all a real chance at something better than what came before. "Okay," she said finally, "we can try. But Dante, I need specific things. I need my own space within whatever home we build. An office where I can work without interruption. I need you to respect when I say I need time alone or time with friends. I need transparency about your business, about the risks, about the parts of your life you used to hide from me. And most importantly, I need you to actually listen when I talk instead of just waiting for your turn to speak." Done. All of it. He leaned forward, pressing a kiss to Sophia's downy head. "Whatever you need, whatever it takes. We'll make it work." "We'll make it work," Lena echoed, and chose to believe it. They brought Sophia home 3 days after her birth, and home turned out to be a completely new space, a townhouse in Cobble Hill that Dante had apparently purchased and furnished in the 2 weeks before Sophia's arrival. It had 4 bedrooms, a garden in the back, and enough space for all of them to coexist without feeling cramped. "When did you even have time to do this?" Lena asked, staring at the nursery he'd set up. Soft yellows and whites, a crib that looked like it cost more than her car, every baby item she could possibly need. "I made time. It's called delegation." He adjusted Sophia in his arms. He was already getting better at holding her, more confident. "Do you like it? If you hate it, we can change everything. This is your home too. Our home. It's beautiful." And it was. Warm and welcoming in a way his cold penthouse had never been. "You really thought of everything." "I tried, though I'm sure we're missing things. We'll figure it out together." That phrase became their mantra in the weeks that followed. "We'll figure it out together" covered everything from how to soothe Sophia's colicky crying at 3 in the morning to negotiating who would handle which aspects of childcare. Dante threw himself into fatherhood with the same intensity he'd once reserved for business deals, reading books and watching videos and asking Lena a million questions. "Am I doing this right?" he'd ask while burping Sophia. "There's no right way, just what works for her." "But the book said..." "The book doesn't know our daughter. We do." It was a revelation to him, the idea that he couldn't control or perfect his way through parenthood, that being a good father meant being present and flexible and willing to adapt. Lena watched him struggle with it, watched him fight his instincts to manage and direct, and saw him choose differently, choose to follow Sophia's cues instead of some predetermined plan. 2 months after Sophia's birth, on a quiet Sunday morning while their daughter napped, Dante found Lena in the kitchen making coffee. "I have something for you," he said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Lena's heart jumped. "Dante, if that's a ring..." "It's not a ring. Just open it." Inside was a key, simple, unadorned, attached to a keychain that read "Home." It's the key to this house, Dante explained. But more than that, it's a promise. This is your home, Lena. Not because I own it or because we're together, but because you belong here. You and Sophia. No matter what happens between us, no matter if we make this work romantically or not, this place is yours. Your sanctuary, your safe space. I had the deed put in both our names, equal ownership, equal say, in everything. Lena stared at the key, feeling tears prick her eyes. It was such a small gesture and such an enormous one at the same time. A tangible symbol of partnership, of trust, of him actually putting his money where his mouth was about shared control. Thank you, she whispered. This means more than you know. I'm just getting started. He moved closer, his hand coming up to cup her face. I'm going to spend every day for the rest of my life proving to you that I've changed, that I can be the partner you deserve and the father Sophia needs. And maybe someday you'll be ready to try again, really try. But until then, I'm just grateful to be here, to be part of this. Lena leaned into his touch, feeling the warmth of his palm against her cheek. They hadn't been intimate since before Sophia's birth, hadn't crossed that line back into romance. But the connection between them had been growing anyway, built on shared 3 a.m. feedings and quiet conversations while Sophia slept, on watching each other become parents and finding beauty in the exhaustion. I'm not ready yet, she said honestly, to remarry you, to jump back into that level of commitment. I know, and I'm not pushing, he searched for the words. I'm just here, loving you, loving our daughter, building something real instead of something that looks good on paper. You're doing a good job. Better than I expected, honestly. High praise from someone who had every reason to doubt me. His smile was self-deprecating. But I'll take it, and I'll keep working to earn more of it. Sophia's cry interrupted them, the demanding wail that meant she was hungry and angry about it. They both moved toward the stairs, years of partnership making them naturally coordinate their movements even after all the time apart. Dante reached the nursery first, scooping up their daughter with practiced ease. Hey, princess, I know, you're starving. Heaven forbid you wait 2 minutes for food. She gets her impatience from you, Lena said, settling into the nursing chair. She gets her determination from you. He handed Sophia over, watching as she latched on immediately. And hopefully she'll get the best of both of us. My drive, your compassion, my resources, your groundedness, my massive ego, Lena suggested. I was going to say strategic thinking, but sure, we can go with ego. He sat on the ottoman across from them, content to just watch his daughter eat. She's beautiful, just like her mother. She looks like you, same eyes, same stubborn chin. Poor kid. She's lucky. She has good parents who love her and each other, even if we're figuring out what that love looks like. Dante met her eyes over Sophia's downy head. I do love you, Lena. I never stopped. Not when you left, not during the divorce, not in all the months since. I just learned to love you differently, to love you enough to let you make your own choices, even when those choices didn't include me. I love you too, Lena admitted quietly. I tried not to, tried to convince myself I'd move past it, but seeing you with her, seeing how hard you're working to be different, I love you. Maybe more than I did before, because now I see all of you, not just the polished version you presented. Even the parts that aren't pretty? Especially those parts. They make you human instead of intimidating. Sophia finished eating and promptly fell asleep, milk-drunk and content. Lena burped her gently, then handed her to Dante, who took her with reverent care. I'm going to put her down, he said. Then maybe we can talk, really talk about what comes next for us? I'd like that. Lena waited in the kitchen, making tea for both of them, while he settled Sophia in her crib. When he returned, he looked nervous in a way she rarely saw. Dante Russo, afraid of a conversation. I want to remarry you, he said without preamble. Not right now, not tomorrow, but eventually, when you're ready, when you trust that I've really changed, and this isn't just an act I'm putting on. Dante, let me finish. He took a breath, steadying himself. I know I don't deserve a second chance. I know I failed you in fundamental ways during our first marriage. But Lena, these past few months have shown me what we could be. What we could build together if we both commit to doing it differently, to actually being partners instead of me being the decision maker and you being the person who lives with my decisions. What would be different? Lena asked. Lena, specifically, not just promises, but actual concrete changes. Therapy, together and individually. Building a life that includes both our careers and priorities, not just mine. Sharing the emotional labor of running a household and raising Sophia instead of assuming you'll handle all of it. Actually communicating instead of shutting down when things get hard. And most importantly, respecting your autonomy, your right to make choices about your own life, your own body, your own career, all of it. He pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table to her. I had my lawyers draw this up. A post-nuptial agreement in case you ever decide to marry me again. It protects your assets, guarantees your financial independence, and ensures you have equal say in all major decisions, including where we live, how we raise Sophia, all of it. I'm not looking for a wife who'll just go along with what I want. I'm looking for a partner who'll challenge me, call me out when I'm being an ass, and build a life with me based on mutual respect. Lena opened the folder, scanning the legal language. It was exactly what he'd described. Protection for her, guarantees of partnership, none of the traditional prenuptial clauses about her getting nothing if the marriage dissolved. This is significant, she said quietly. It's necessary. If we're going to do this again, we do it right. With clear expectations and legal protections and actual equality baked into the foundation. Lena set down the papers, studying the man across from her. The father who got up every night without complaint when Sophia cried. The partner who asked her opinion on everything from dinner plans to business decisions. The man who was fighting his own nature to become someone better. Ask me again in a year, she said finally. Let's see if you can maintain this for a full year. If we can actually build a partnership that works. If you can prove this isn't just new parent excitement, but genuine change. And if we make it to Sophia's first birthday with this still working, still feeling like a real partnership, then we'll talk about remarriage. Relief flooded Dante's features. A year. I can do a year. I can do forever if that's what it takes. 1 year, Lena repeated firmly. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But as Dante reached across the table to take her hand as they sat in the home they were building together with their daughter sleeping upstairs, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The year that followed was hard work, the kind of work that required constant communication and compromise and choosing each other every single day. There were fights when Dante's control issues resurfaced and Lena had to remind him of their agreement. There were tears when exhaustion and hormones and the stress of new parenthood made everything feel impossible. There were moments when both of them wondered if they were fooling themselves, if this attempt at partnership was doomed to fail like their marriage had. But there were also moments of profound beauty. Sophia's first smile, directed at Dante, who'd been making ridiculous faces for 20 minutes to earn it. Her first laugh, surprised out of her when Lena accidentally dropped a spoon. The day she rolled over, the day she sat up, the day she took her first wobbly steps straight into her father's arms. They watched her grow together, marveling at each milestone. Dante proved he could maintain his commitment to change, to partnership, to actually showing up as an equal parent instead of a distant provider. Lena proved she could trust again, slowly lowering the walls she'd built and letting him back into her heart. On Sophia's first birthday, surrounded by friends and family in the garden behind their townhouse, Dante pulled Lena aside. "It's been a year," he said simply. "It has." Lena watched their daughter destroy a smash cake with enthusiastic hands, frosting everywhere. "You did it! You kept your promises." "We did it. Together." He pulled out a small box, and this time Lena's heart jumped for a different reason. "I'm not asking you to answer now. I'm just asking you to think about it, to consider if maybe we're ready to make this official again, different than before, better than before." Inside the box was a ring, simple, elegant, nothing like the massive diamond he'd given her the first time. This one was understated, beautiful, a single sapphire, the color of Sophia's eyes. "I remember," Lena whispered. "I told you once I liked sapphires better than diamonds." "You did. 3 years ago, walking past a jewelry store window. You said diamonds were too flashy, that sapphires had depth." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. I remember everything about you, Lena. Every conversation, every preference, every moment. And I want to spend the rest of my life creating new memories, new moments, a new marriage built on who we are now instead of who we were. Lena looked at the ring, at Dante's hopeful face, at their daughter laughing in the grass covered in frosting. She thought about the year they'd built together, about the partnership they'd created through hard work and honest communication and choosing each other every single day. Yes, she said, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. Yes, I'll marry you again, but Dante, we're doing this differently. Small ceremony, people who actually matter. No massive society wedding, no performance, just us and the people we love, and a commitment we both actually understand this time. Whatever you want. He slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. Thank you for giving me another chance, for believing I could change, for building this with me. Thank you for actually doing the work, for proving you meant it. They sealed it with a kiss, soft and full of promise, while their daughter squealed in delight at her birthday cake and their friends cheered in the background. 6 weeks later, they remarried in the same garden with only 20 people present. Rachel Torres stood as Lena's witness, having transformed from bodyguard to friend over the past year. Marcus, Dante's investigator, stood as his. And Sophia, 14 months old and impossibly beautiful in a tiny white dress, was held by Martha the doula, who'd become an honorary grandmother. The vows they exchanged were nothing like the traditional ones from their first wedding. These were honest, hard-won, specific to the relationship they'd built. I promise to listen when you speak instead of waiting for my turn to talk, Dante said, his voice rough with emotion. I promise to respect your autonomy even when every instinct tells me to protect and control. I promise to be a partner, not a provider. To share the work, the decisions, the struggles, and the joys. I promise to keep working on myself, to keep growing, to never assume I've figured it all out. And I promise to love you and Sophia with everything I have every single day for the rest of my life. I promise to trust you when you've earned it and call you out when you haven't, Lena said, tears streaming down her face. I promise to communicate instead of letting resentment build. I promise to be honest about what I need even when it's hard. I promise to believe in the man you're becoming while holding you accountable to be that man. And I promise to love you, not despite your flaws, but because you're willing to acknowledge them and work on them. To build this life with you, this family, this partnership that's ours and nobody else's. When they kissed, Sophia clapped, making everyone laugh through their tears. The reception was simple: good food, better wine, and the people who'd supported them through the hardest year of their lives. Dante held Lena close as they danced to music playing from someone's phone, their daughter asleep on Rachel's shoulder. No regrets? He murmured against her hair. Not a single one. She pulled back to look at him, this complicated man she'd loved and left and learned to love again. We're going to make this work, Dante. Really work. Because we both want it enough to fight for it. Every single day, he agreed. I'll fight for this every single day. And he did. They both did. The years that followed weren't perfect. No relationship ever is. There were still arguments and misunderstandings and moments of frustration, but there was also laughter and partnership and the kind of love that's built through shared experience rather than initial attraction. They watched Sophia grow from a toddler to a little girl, bright and determined and so loved she glowed with it. They navigated Dante's business challenges and Lena's career advancement, learning to support each other through stress instead of letting it divide them. They had another child 3 years later, a son they named Marco, after Dante's grandmother's maiden name, and found that the partnership they'd built was strong enough to withstand the chaos of 2 children. Dante continued therapy, continued working on his control issues, continued choosing partnership over dominance. Lena continued to believe in him, to call him out when needed, to build a life that was fully hers even within their marriage. They were both better people together than they'd been apart, and they both knew how rare that was. On their 5th wedding anniversary, the second one, the one that counted, Dante woke Lena before dawn. "Come with me," he said, already dressed. "I have something to show you." They drove to the Prospect Park boathouse, the same place where Lena had agreed to try again all those years ago. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the water in shades of gold and pink. I come here sometimes, Dante admitted, as they walked to the same bench they'd sat on that pivotal day. When work gets overwhelming or I feel myself slipping into old patterns, I come here and remember what we almost lost, what we built instead. That's incredibly sentimental for someone who used to think emotions were inefficient. You've changed me. He pulled her close, his arms around her waist, her back against his chest as they watched the sunrise together. Made me better. Made me believe I could be better. We changed each other, Lena corrected, leaning into his warmth. That's what partnerships do. Behind them, the city was waking up. Their children were safe at home with Rachel, who'd become part of their family in all the ways that mattered. Their life was full and complicated and beautiful in its imperfection. I love you, Dante said quietly. More now than I did when we first married. More than I did when we remarried. Love that grows and deepens and gets richer with time. I love you too. Lena turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd fought so hard to become who she needed. Thank you for not giving up, for doing the work, for proving that people really can change if they want it badly enough. Thank you for giving me the chance, for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. They kissed as the sun rose fully over the water, two people who'd loved and lost and found their way back to something better than what came before. Their story hadn't been easy or straightforward or anything close to perfect, but it was theirs, built through hard work and honest communication and the daily choice to keep choosing each other. And that made it perfect enough. Sophia and Marco would grow up knowing that love was complicated, that relationships required work, that their parents weren't perfect, but they were committed. They'd grow up in a home where partnership was modeled daily, where mistakes were acknowledged and growth was celebrated, where both parents were present and engaged and genuinely in love. And someday, when Sophia was old enough to understand, Lena would tell her the whole story, how she'd run from her father's world, how she'd tried to keep her pregnancy a secret, how a chance encounter at a clinic had changed everything. She'd tell her about the threats and the fear and the hard work of rebuilding trust. But mostly, she'd tell her about the love, the kind that survives divorce and rebuilds stronger. The kind that chooses partnership over control, communication over assumptions, growth over stagnation. The kind that's tested by fire and comes out refined. Because that's the kind of love worth fighting for, worth building a life around, worth passing down to the next generation. And as Dante held Lena in the morning light, both of them exactly where they belonged, that's exactly what they had. A love worth everything.